Thank you, Madam President, and good morning, colleagues. Today I am joined by our colleague, Councilmember Paul Koretz, and I know the city attorney, Mike Feuer, wanted to be here, so he's trying to rush down as soon as possible, and he might be able to join us in the tail end at the very least, to celebrate a bastion of local journalism, the Beverly Press Park La Brea News. The Park La Brea News has been in print for 73 years, reporting on the issues of Greater Wilshire, Beverly Hills, and beyond, and providing critical insight on the local issues that readers and our voters and residents care about. Local journalism is a vital force in our civic and social life. Local papers bind communities together over shared triumphs and tragedies. Local papers empower residents to get involved and invest in where they live. And local papers play a crucial role in the sharing the facts, providing sober analysis, and yes, holding our local public servants accountable. As we've seen papers big and small close shop in recent years, I feel so lucky to open my copy of the Beverly Press every week, because there is no substitute for local journalism. And when communities lose their local paper, they lose their voice, their advocate, and their collective memory. Local journalism is a staple of our democracy, and it should be protected at all costs. And no one knows this better than Karen and Michael Villalpando, and their two daughters joining them today. The Villalpandos bought the Park La Brea News in 1990 and merged it with the Beverly Press to form the Park La Brea Beverly Press, covering Greater Wilshire, the Miracle Mile, West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, Melrose, Fairfax, and more. Since then, Karen and Michael has increased production in turning the paper into a weekly. They have provided coverage on the LA riots, the Northridge earthquake, and the incredible growth in the Miracle Mile. So today, we are celebrating 30 years of incredible journalism at the Beverly Press Park La Brea News. If we could give them all a round of applause again. It is very hard to imagine Greater Wilshire without the Beverly Press. Just like the original Farmers Market, LACMA, or the Pan Pacific Park, the Beverly Press Park La Brea News is our mainstay in our community and in our city, feeding the minds and enriching the lives of all Angelenos. And now, since their coverage is so broad, we have other members here, including our city attorney who just joined us, who know and love the Beverly Press. So I want to invite up Councilmember Paul Koretz, my neighbor and colleague, to say a few words.
Well, thank you, Mr. Rue, for bringing this forward. I've been fortunate enough to be covered and work with the Beverly Press through my 30 years in elective office and their 30 years of publication, so it coincides perfectly. I'm glad they created it just so they could cover me that whole time, so thank you. The Beverly Press is a very feisty, scrappy local paper that often scoops and bests much larger city papers. The investigative news team, led by editor Ed Folvin, harkens back to a time when the micro newspaper was the paper of record, with a keen eye to balanced investigation with a very high standard of journalistic ethics. And whether they're covering homelessness or a building permit or the opening of a new business, I'm never surprised to find your professional staff on it early and often, and asking the hard questions and being knowledgeable on both sides of every issue. I believe the Beverly Press actually provides the best local coverage in the city of Los Angeles. In today's world, when the press is under scrutiny and under siege and print publications are going under right and left, I think the Beverly Press is a model for any paper of any size. The reporters work hard, Their reporting is fair, and it is objective, and they have their thumb on the pulse of the issues that our community cares about. So I congratulate them on their first 30 years, and I look forward to the next 30. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilmember Koretz. Next, our City Attorney, Mike Feuer, who would like to say a few words as well.
Thank you, David. Madam President, members, I have the privilege of living in the neighborhood that is covered by the press, and as a consequence, I read it every week, and my neighbors do too. And the thing about it is, this newspaper captures what's happening both on the streets of our neighborhood and in the broader city. It informs residents about stories that no one else is telling. And I know from talking with neighbors that this newspaper is a newspaper that creates conversations in our neighborhood. It stimulates discussion, and it's a catalyst for action. When the Park La Brea News Beverly Press covers a story, it leads officials, nonprofit leaders, the business community, educators, and others to stand up, take notice, and take action. There's a thing about your paper. It captures the texture of what's happening on the street, the fabric of a neighborhood that's so hard for other newspapers to really have a feeling for because of the breadth and scope of their coverage. We are so grateful in our community to have Michael and Karen leading this newspaper, which sets an example for local newspapers, not just here in Los Angeles, but across the country, for what it means to cover the stories that everyone will be talking about the next day. And I also want to say, as someone who is occasionally covered by the paper, I appreciate the fact that you're on it. You are often the first reporters on a story. You're often the people who are telling a story that, as I said, few others are telling. And what that does is it makes sure that our community is among the best informed communities in the city of Los Angeles. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm so glad that you were able to join us. And of course, finally, I'm so glad to have the publishers of the Beverly Press, Karen and Michael Villalpando, to say a few words. Karen, Michael?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So I want to tell you the story of how we became the publishers of Park La Brea News and Beverly Press. In 1990, we had been married about a year and a half. We heard that the Park La Brea News was for sale. So we took a second mortgage on our little house and bought the paper. At the time, we had to keep our jobs to make ends meet, our other jobs. We hired a young journalism graduate, Brian Boyer, as our first editor, and the three of us grew up learning the news business. After publishing nights in the old days where you literally cut and pasted and put it through a waxer, our offices were in the old dell of the farmer's market. We would sit out on the roof afterwards and drink beer and be proud of our accomplishment. The newspaper went from twice a month, 3,400 circulation, to a weekly. We created the Beverly Press a few months later to better represent the neighborhood. We grew and expanded, and suddenly we had a voice. We had become a real newspaper. Brian went on to a big career. He became the fashion director of Men's Health magazine. Several of our alumni writers went on to the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and Bloomberg News. Now, we are delivered to more than 13,000 homes every week with the Los Angeles Times. We covered the Miracle Mile, Hancock Park, the Fairfax District, West Hollywood, and Beverly Hills. But the best part of what we've done over the last 30 years as publishers is to continue to provide pertinent news and to be relevant. We cover stories that matter, stories you won't read anywhere else, and issues that our readers care about. We've strived to do that for the past 30 years, and we've had success and a little fun along the way. And we will continue to do that for the next 30 years. Thank you for recognizing us, and thank you for recognizing your trusted local newspaper, publishing since 1946. Thank you.
Hi. Thank you, folks, for all being here. We're very grateful for the recognition. So I want to tell a little story. When I was a kid, my father used to quote Plato, Aristotle, Socrates, Einstein, and so at a young age, I became interested in quotations, familiar quotations. So I became familiar with Bartlett's Familiar Quotations. And that became like my go-to book for entertainment and just to learn a few things. And so one of the things that we recently introduced into the newspaper is a section or a feature called Notable Quotes. And one of the very first quote that we used was actually one from a movie, Citizen Kane. And that quote was Orson Welles as Citizen Kane saying, "I think it would be fun to run a newspaper." And it is. It has been for the last 30 years. And so we're so proud to have been able to have brought you solid news for the last 30 years. We will continue doing it for the next. And so with that, I just want to say thank you to all of our staff, my wife, my children, all the folks here for the recognition, and we promise to continue to do the hard work and keep your eyes open for breaking news every day. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And you know, Madam President, I jumped the gun. There are probably members who want to speak.
There is Mr. O'Farrell would like to say a few words.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, my good colleagues, for bringing the Villalpando family into City Hall and their incredible reporting team. It's great to honor you and your 30th year anniversary, and really it highlights the importance of standing up and supporting the freedom of the press. And what I remark about the Park La Brea News and Beverly Press all the time is that you cover the real stories. Other publications just miss them all the time. I could give you numerous examples and a few publications that engage in missing the real story on a regular basis, but you all never do. And so we appreciate that, and my constituents appreciate it as well. I hear from people all the time when I'm out in the world about, oh, I read this article in the Beverly Press. I had no idea. So I just want you to understand what a great service you're offering and how wonderful it is to have a member of the city family be a member of the media family as well. And also to acknowledge your acumen for running a business that is not easy with paper costs and printing costs, and you have run a successful business for 30 years, and you've grown that business at a time when other publications were shrinking or even disappearing. So my hat's off to you. You're the example that other publications can look to. Obviously, you're doing many, many things right, and we really appreciate the service that you offer the public in covering the real stories that happen in Los Angeles, in this great city. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Mitch and council members, that reminds me of one other quote I wanted to mention. And it's from Mark Twain. And people talk about the newspaper industry shrinking and newspapers going away. But I'll paraphrase Mark Twain and say, "The reports of my demise have been greatly exaggerated. We're strong, we're going to continue, and we are doing very well. Keep looking for that newspaper." Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And you know, I want to echo Councilman O'Farrell's thoughts. Yes, you know, you cover all the local stories, from the tree planting to the sidewalk repairs, the things that some of the larger papers won't cover, because obviously it's too, they might see it as a smaller issue, but those are the issues that affect all of our residents day to day. If you're on a walker cane, if you have disability issues, that sidewalk being fixed means a matter of life or death. So thank you for covering all of the issues that matter for our local communities. And with that said, and without further ado, along with City Attorney Mike Feuer and Councilmember Paul Koretz, I'd like to present this certificate celebrating 30 years of the Beverly Press.